Hello and welcome. My name's Claire Evans and I'm going to be looking at how you build a case in Voyant Global. So here we are, we've just logged into the software and this is our home screen. So what's different to Global than our other jurisdictions, if you're familiar with the UK or Australian version of the software, is that in Global you need to have your tax regime. So up here, this is where you can set your tax regime. So you can create a new one by clicking on the plus sign. You can give your regime name any name that you wish. You can choose the currency that you wish to be your reporting currency in the software. So whilst we do have the ability to enter multi-currencies in the software, there is just one overarching reporting currency that everything is based back to. You also set your income tax thresholds and income tax rates. Please note that at the present time you can't show any tiered income tax rates, okay? That might come in a later iteration of the software, but for the time being you can just set one average income tax rate in the plan. Same thing with the dividend tax, interest tax, and any capital gains tax. So hopefully that's all pretty self-explanatory. So once you've created your tax regime, and you might have clients in many different jurisdictions, this is where you'll find your library of regimes, and you can edit that at a later date if you need to, or delete it. So I go to my client record screen, and to enter my client case, I click on the plus sign and I'm going to create my client. So here I would put in my client's first name, and I put in the birth date and whether they're retired. If they're retiring, what year are they retiring? You can choose that. Then we pick their tax regime. Notice that you can create your tax regime here if you haven't already done so. So we're going to leave it here with the Singaporean tax regime. And then we get to our dashboard. So the first thing you might want to do is to add a spouse into the plan. So all new items are loaded in through the plus sign. So here we go to people. We put our husband in. We put his retirement age in the plan. We save that. Maybe we've got a child. We put their details in the plan. And then every person in the plan has a little coloured icon. So we've got Claire, her husband, and their child, and they all have a correlating little coloured peg here that continues through the plan. So then we use the plus sign and we can just start to enter our details. I'm going to start with the hard facts, so I'm going to go with the income. So we go to our employment, Claire's earnings. So Claire's earning 300,000 Singapore dollars. Maybe she gets a bonus, we can put the bonus in. On the timing field, what you'll notice is that the software will automatically default that it will start that employment now and it will finish when Claire retires. But if you wanted to, what we could do is we could show that the client's earnings end at a different point, and we would need to just create an event for that. Back in the basics also, we've got a growth assumption on our earnings. So that ties into your setting your assumption for growth on national average earnings. And we're going to take a look at settings in a little while. So I saved that record. Let's put husband's earnings in. So I can change the person. So that's now husband. Income for hubby. So he's earning 200,000. So that goes in the plan. Let's now look at some savings accounts. So let's say they've got an investment account. So let's say it's a joint investment. I'm going to call this joint plan. We've got 100,000 in it at the moment. Let's say we're contributing 5,000 a month to that, so we've got 5,000 per month. When we set a contribution, we need to set the timing for those contributions. So we're going to start that now, and we're going to finish when Claire retires. So we can drag and drop Claire's retirement into the end box. You've also got the option to set the growth assumptions. Now the growth assumptions are coming straight from your plan settings, which again we're going to look at in a little while, and we've got a 6% growth assumption here, but we do also have fees in the plan. Any pot you can limit the withdrawals if you need to, so by default we set up all investment and savings accounts to draw on as needed, but you can schedule your withdrawals from that pot, or you can say do not allow any withdrawals. So you've got complete control over whether the software liquidates that asset later on in the plan when we need income. You can also set up planned withdrawals, okay? So if you need to, you can actually structure your specific withdrawals. Let's put a cash emergency fund in. So we go to savings, we call this emergency fund. Let's make it a joint account again. And here I'm going to set a withdrawal limit on this as do not allow. So we keep that in the background as a genuine emergency fund. Let's pop a property in there. Okay, so let's call this the property overseas. So property overseas. We've got here the value of it in Singapore dollars, but if we click on this button here, what we can do is we can choose another currency. Let's say we had our property in the UK, we could choose pound sterling, and the market value, let's call it 500,000, would then be converted to Singapore dollars for us. So the reporting currency remains Singapore dollars, but we've entered the asset value in UK sterling. We can link an income to that, so we can say, well, actually, okay, while we're renting, while we're living abroad, we've got some rental income from that. So again, we can toggle this and we can use the sterling option. So we can say that we're getting, say, £15,000 per annum. So we can add that to the property. We can link a debt if we need to. So mortgage or any other borrowing. Again, we would tie this in because it's all in UK sterling. There we are. Keep that interest only. There we go. So that's all saved. Back to the dashboard. We're now going to enter some expenses. Now, it's really up to you how you enter expenses and goals into the plan. So, for example, we have our rent in Singapore. So I'm going to go to expenses. This is a basic expense. I'm going to call this rent. We're spending 5,000 a month on our rental. So in the timing field, we start that expense now. We don't want it to run to mortality because we're not sure what we're going to do. So essentially, when Claire gets to 60, we're thinking that at that point, we might consider going back to the UK. So we're going to end our rental requirement in Singapore at that point. So we can save that item. Let me just take a little diversion right now and talk about the plan settings before I forget. So here in the plan settings, you've got all your assumptions for growth and inflation, and you can set those to reflect whatever your view of the world is, okay? Also fees. So I'm going to take the cash fees out and I'm going to make these fees all 2%. Okay, so essentially what I'm doing there is I'm making my investment growth 4. So I'm saying I've got investment growth of 6 minus my fees of 2 gives me a net return of 4% per annum. And I'm going to save that change. So now if I proceed with the expenses and just put some other basic expenses in. So let's go, here we go, home help. So let's say that's 1,500 a month. Again, set the timing for this. Okay. And then let's talk about maybe some luxury spending. So we're going to enjoy the fact that we're in a great place in the world to explore. So we want to spend 20,000 a year traveling, exploring the world, and we're going to do that until we retire. Okay. So you've seen then how you can load in expenses, but let me take a few minutes to show you how to load a goal in. But before we do this, I'm going to go to the timeline. The timeline is a really important part of the software. This is driving a lot of the outcomes in the software. So for example, we've got Claire's retirement here, her husband's retirement here. So to equalize their retirements, I can just click and drag his retirement to match up with hers, so that they both now retire at the same point. We know we've got their son here, and he's 11 at the moment, so we're paying school fees until, let's say, until he's 22. So what I'm going to do is reflect at this point that that's when he's graduated and we no longer have school fees, or university or college or whatever. So I double click in this graph here. I'm going to use the graduation hat, and I'm going to call this education fees end. Okay. Now this is a really important part of my planning. It's a really important part of who we are as a family, and it's a goal of ours to be able to afford those education fees until we need to. So rather than just putting that in as an expense, I'm going to reflect this as a goal in the plan. So I can either go back to my dashboard and add the goal, or I can do it here. And I literally just decide what type of goal it is. So it's during the period of pre-retirement. So I'm just going to reflect that this is an education fees for William, their son. And then that is 35,000 Singapore dollars. And the timing of that is from now until, not until Claire retires, but until he gets to 22, William's 22. So we just replace that event, and now we have that goal in the plan. And the beauty of having something as a goal is that you can see the progress towards it. And that's quite nice to be able to do that. So let's talk about retirement income. So, you know, in this example, we've got an expat here, Claire and her husband, and they're thinking that they might come back to the UK at that point when they retire. So we want a retirement income goal in the plan. So what we can do here is we can click on the plus, we can put a goal in. It's a retirement goal. So if I put here, target income in retirement, and again, we can put that in sterling. So I can say, okay, in pound terms, we want to spend, say, 60,000 a year, okay, which converts to Singapore there. And the timing of that is from retirement until mortality. So when I've got a goal in here, I can see the progress towards the goal, but you don't have that for expense items. So what I say is a general rule of thumb, that anything that's aspirational or a desired objective for a client should go into the software as a goal as such, because that allows you to report the progress towards it. And maybe everything else put in just as basic expenses. Now, obviously, I need to put more expenditure items in the plan for this to be genuine, but you get the general idea. And in actual fact, when you're loading in either expenses or goals, they work in the same way. You do have this option in the details panel to itemize your expenditure. So this might be gas, I don't know, let's call this $1,000 a month. Let's call this item food. And then you get the general gist. So you can go on and on and on. And then what that does is when you go back to the main screen, we know now general essential. that we have 24,000, so £2,000 a month for general essential spending. And if you want the details, you can go into the actual details. So, you know, there's nothing to suggest that you have to have that level of detail in Voyant. It's really your choice, okay? Some people like to put that detail in, especially if the client's given them that detail. Others don't, okay? So it really is up to you. So that's how you get a plan started. And you can check out the other video if you want to see what you can show the client in terms of presentation and insights and building scenarios. But hopefully that's enough to get you started. And what I would recommend is that if you've got any specific queries on your plan, then please do come back to us on the support desk. That's support@planwithvoyant.com, and we'll be able to help you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.